Wade, would you lead us in the pledge when we're ready?
All right, Commissioners, it's a streaming.
We ready?
Yeah, it's going.
All right. We'd like to welcome everybody to our Iron County Commission meeting this Monday, the 13th day of November, 2023. We appreciate your attendance. We'll begin this morning with an opening prayer offered by Lori Eichelberger, and then we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Wade Adams.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, for the beautiful weather that we're having, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and to meet as a community with the Commission. We pray that we all work and strive every day towards being amiable with one another and less contentious on a local scale, a state scale, a global scale. Pray, Heavenly Father, that we be thoughtful and kind in all of our actions, and I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John, what were the dates on those?
10-9 and 10-23.
Yeah.
It was the special meeting from 10-9.
Okay, so we have,
That?
we'll go ahead and work on approving our minutes. We've got minutes from 10-9 of 2023, which was our special meeting at the Heritage Center, Heritage Theater, and then the commission meeting of 10-23 to approve.
I would move for approval of the minutes for 10-9-2023 and 10-23-2023.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go ahead and approve claims for payment from October 23rd through November 12th, 2023.
I'd move for move for approval of the claims for payment from October 23rd, 2023 to November 12th, 2023.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to departmental reports and start with our clerk,
Okay.
John Whitaker.
Let me catch up to you. Okay, I'm a little discombobulated this morning, and I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. I wanted to talk a little bit about the general election so far. I was going to give you a little bit more numbers, but Encode, they're still working on Encode this morning, so like our marriage licenses and passports and stuff those numbers aren't available this morning. But because of the nature of this election, we sent a ballot to every eligible voter, which is 29,042. We've verified 2,500 signatures so far. We have 1,164 in our possession that have not yet been verified, and they'll probably be verified by the end of the day. Interestingly, because of Representative Stewart's resignation, the election date was moved, and that message clearly didn't get to everyone. And in one sense, it's really helped us out because on November 7th, we had a big bull rush of ballots come in for people trying to get their ballots to us, and so it's kind of good. We would rather have them up front and kind of have them taken care of. So far, it's been going fairly well. We've had technical problems, as you would expect. We are very appreciative of the state DTS people and our IT people who have helped. We had one of our guys was here till he spent pretty much the whole day trying to get one of our scanners to work, and he got it at like 4:58. So we're grateful for that. Obviously, there's a lot on this ballot that interests Iron County. This is a unique situation where we've got so many questions about taxation with RAP taxes and bonds and things. Then we have the CD2 race, Congressional District 2, and then we have multiple local races. So lots of reporting, lots of different parties who are going to be very interested in the results. Things are going well. We hired a new clerk and deputy clerk, and her name is Lisa Witt. She was on the agenda 2 times ago when I wasn't here, and she's been great. The office is doing well. I say this often and maybe not often enough, but our my deputies and then our election workers, and I tell them this, they are the defenders of democracy, in my opinion. And I'm grateful for the work that they do. That's it. Any questions for me?
I wonder if we should advertise again that they're actually not due till the 21st.
Yeah, it's on every ballot that we send out.
Yeah,
and we
but
could
I
certainly,
think people are forgetting.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when I took my ballot in and John was picking them up, it was clear full.
we had a bull
But
rush.
I
We'd swapped
wonder
it out
if
twice that
people
day.
still, I wonder if we could put something out on Facebook
We
or
certainly
something.
could. Yeah,
Just remember to vote.
yeah.
It's been extended
It's,
to the
it's
20.
Yeah.
extended till the 21st.
Right. Yeah,
So-
the elections are different, and then we'll have.
And they can actually vote on the 21st too, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. That's election day, and that'll be, anybody that wants to vote in person or that didn't receive a by-mail ballot, or Utah allows what they call same-day registration, and you basically come and prove up and vote provisionally. And then looking forward to next year, we've got, because of the nature of what we're anticipating with the presidential primary, the Republican Party has talked about doing a caucus election that way, which will mean we won't be doing it. Ironically, it will probably be the Democrats that would require us to do an election in March. And so what that will mean is in Utah there are open primary parties and closed primary parties. So the Republicans and the Constitution Party have what they would call a closed primary.
Just for the
And so only their actual, affiliated members can do that. But the Democrats have an open primary. And so we're going to actually probably send a letter out before the end of the year. Not probably. We will send a letter out before the end of the year kind of explaining how that works and the requirements to affiliate or not. So that will be in the mail shortly after we get done with this election. So anyway, any other questions?
No.
We had a lovely kind of a courthouse fall social over at the Fair Building, and Commissioner Blake was able to come. I know you guys would have come if you could. We had some cornhole and some Dutch oven, and Commissioner Blake, he smoked some tri-tip, and it was awesome because everybody thought it was brisket. He did a good job.
We advertised brisket, but then we made tri-tip.
It was the old bait and
It's
switch,
better
Did the old
anyway.
bait and switch.
but it was a good time. It was good to, and we invited
You
families to
upsold
come
it.
out. We upsold it, and he cooked
upsold
it
it.
really well, so that didn't hurt. Anyway, thank you.
Who knew Costco wouldn't have any brisket?
Wow.
There was no brisket to be found.
That is weird.
So we punted.
I've got some in my freezer.
Let's see. You have cows to get the brisket from. I have to go to Costco.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to emergency management. George.
Commissioners,
Morning.
so generally I get up here and talk about my budget, and it's doing all right, but there's a couple of items. Earlier this year, I brought before you a proposal to buy some radios because we're switching over platforms, the state is, and I needed a new mobile in my vehicle and a new handheld. You approved it. It just never got paid, and now we just recently found out it hadn't been paid, so there's some budget adjustments that Luke is going to have to do with my budget, and it was you'd approved a little over $3,000 for that, so there's going to be an adjustment on that, and fuel's getting really low.
And George, was that the bill with Motorola?
Yes.
And you weren't the only line item on there.
No. The sheriff's office had a small one, and then the majority of it, the largest part of it was fire, was
Ryan.
Riddle. Yeah. So.
Appreciate everybody getting to the bottom of that one. That bill had come up a few times and we couldn't.
Yeah,
figure out
it
who the
just
owner
kept
of it was.
appearing in my mailbox, and
Yeah.
I couldn't. I knew I didn't owe $30,000 to Motorola.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good. I appreciate everybody who got that worked out because I think we've.
So
got
those
that
are
taken care of.
those are the only things. And again, fuel's getting low, but I've still got probably a few dollars there. I'm surprised that I have any money left at all.
Yeah, no kidding.
Other than that, it's doing all right. Getting to the meat of it, I continue to work on the repeater for Bryan Head and Parowan Canyon with UCA. Apparently now we're at the point where they're just looking for the ability to hang that repeater on a tower up there above this, right there at the lift. So it looks we're a lot farther on with that project than we've ever been. Ever. So hopefully by early next year we'll have actual radio communication all the way down the canyon and for Bryan Head. I applied for the 2023-2024 Emergency Management Performance Grant. I was accepted. Met with Cedar Highlands HOA on evacuation issues. Assisted SUU for homecoming. Met with the Homeless Coalition on Code Blue issues. Met with county law enforcement on Code Blue issues. Survived another budget hearing. I say that tongue-in-cheek because you guys are always great. I never have any problems. I acquired a Starlink system for the county with federal grant money, which will allow us to, no matter how back in the woods, if we have search and rescue or law enforcement, SO needs that, we can put this system up and we have instant communications. We can get internet, we can get phones. So this allows us to hook right into Elon's Starlink system anywhere we're at. So, and I was able to get federal grant money to buy that system. Assisted, and this was the fun one, I assisted Hurricane PD with the Mongol Outlaw Motorcycle Club invasion of Hurricane. They had probably 250, 300 outlaw motorcycle guys arrive from Nevada, California, and Arizona, northern Utah, and so I was down there assisting them. I took equipment down, and along with Washington County, we all and we had PD guys from Cedar that went down, so we all, the whole region, kind of jumped in and assisted them with keeping those guys in check, and we did.
They were okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we put such a strong lock on them that Saturday night they used Uber instead of riding their motorcycles to go out to dinner. And when you can get a outlaw motorcycle club to use Uber to go to dinner, you know you've come down on them hard. So I attended the Utah State Floodplain Managers Conference along with Rich Wilson. He and I both were there. I attended the state mitigation plan meeting, which was down in Washington County. The state was trotting out their new mitigation plan. I submitted my first quarter EMPG report. Commissioner Blake and Sam and I went up to Salt Lake and met with the new director of emergency medical services and had a talk about the county's new responsibilities and authority with the new legislation for emergency medical services. it lays the responsibility for providing those services back on the county and the incorporated municipalities. And I've had this conversation with most of the city managers in Iron County, and rather than them trying to acquire their own emergency medical services, they're going to sign an MOU with the county, and the county will take care of it from a county standpoint, countywide, rather than them trying to do it individually. And I'm working with Sam on all of that, so get the wording right. Arranged for blankets for the homeless shelter for our first Code Blue. Attended all the county floodplain mapping meetings for all of the communities. Met with Canaryville Town Council and their mayor because they had questions about Code Blue, and I met with them at a council meeting and was able to explain it. And attended the health department's radio exercise. Any questions?
Have we heard about the grant money for the damage on the snow, the road?
Every 2 weeks, I call the state and harass them.
Oh, good.
And they've come to see it as my biweekly harassment calls. And I just did several of them last week. As a matter of fact, I even reached out beyond the people I usually talk to and to the guy who actually
Was over it.
who is the one who pushes that up to FEMA, and it's we're one of the few counties that was accepted because of the amount of paperwork that we submitted. It's gone to FEMA. They're confident that we're going to get the declaration, but we don't know when. And then at that point, I've got to redo all of the paperwork to submit it once we get the declaration. The original paperwork I submitted was for the notice of intent to apply, and that was accepted. And now, once FEMA okays the declaration, then I'll have to put all that together. And in anticipation of that, I've already asked Bruce to send me all of his cruise pictures and stuff, so it will include that. Also, I'll reach out. Apparently, Paraguna had some damage that I wasn't aware of, and they're going to, when I was there at the mapping meeting on Friday, we talked about that, and I told them to send. So I'll put another email out once we get ready for that final paperwork to all of the municipalities and say, if you've got any additional, let's have it. And so we'll put all that together.
Good.
So yeah, every 2 weeks I call the state and harass them.
The poor state.
Oh no, they're used
wrath
to
of-
it. Yeah, they're used to it with me
George.
because they know I'm just like a dog with a bone. I gnaw on it until everything's gone.
And that's true because I've had meetings with these same state people that are like, George. I'm like, oh no, we're good with him harassing you. You're the state.
I just don't like to treat Iron County like we're some kind of stepchild.
They said we always know where Iron County stands. Well,
yeah.
That's what we pay him for.
Thanks, George.
Thanks,
Any
George.
questions?
Nope.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Extension service, Kathy. And Becca?
She'll come up if she needs to.
I don't know how many of you are going to come up. You can introduce your
Thank you.
entourage if you'd like. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Introduce everybody. Thank you.
Departmental impacts 2023.
Yes, that's
I
the one.
thought you were gone, Kathy. I'm so glad to see you here.
I just keep coming back for more, right?
And I just want to tell everybody Kathy is retiring, but she is fabulous, and we are going to miss her so much.
Oh, you're very kind.
You had really good ice cream at your retirement party.
Yes, it was.
The
It was
snacks,
absolutely-
the snacks were impeccable.
I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your
Well,
forum.
we missed you. I tried to save you some ice cream, but
Thank you.
my staff took care of the rest.
Oh, I'm sure. It was wonderful. It was a lemon custard that was to die for.
Yes, that's what my favorite was, and that's what they brought the most of. So
It was yummy.
yeah. Anyway, but yes, we are the stepchild of Iron County Extension. But I did want to bring a few of our newer faculty staff over this morning to introduce them and have you meet them. I know you've met most of them, but you have to use the microphone so it's on record. So will all of you come up and just introduce yourselves quickly, please?
Hello, I'm Becca Esplin. I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resource.
Hi, I'm Jamie Joseph, been here for a while. I'm Programs and Staff Assistant.
I'm taller. Josh Martin, I'm the horticulture agent, and nice to see you again.
See you.
Larissa Ellsworth, Staff Assistant.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't retire until we were fully loaded in our office. I thought, I can't do that to the county. So we have been having a great year this year with Iron County Office of USU Extension, even though it took us, when did you start, Becca? So we went 6 months without an agriculture person, and we went 8 months without a horticulture person, right in the thick of all of the spring and early summer kinds of things that needed to be done. And we also lost a staff assistant, and it took us a while to get Larissa on, but we're happy to say that when you walk in the door, there's at least one body in each office now. So we're happy about that. I do want to just take a few minutes and give an overview of what's been going on in our office this year as far as the things we're most proud of. We feel that even though we're a small budget compared to some in the county, because we had some positions not filled for quite some time, we will be turning back in a fair amount of our budget this year. And maybe George can use that money. I don't know.
Don't give him any ideas.
Yeah, do not.
George is fine. He's well taken care of.
All right. But one thing that we, I won't say we pride ourselves, but one thing that we've been charged to do with our office is to make sure that our programs are always growing, that we can sustain them, and that we're serving the public. That is our main role, and to provide the education arm of USU and bringing programs and things that are of importance to our local residents here in Iron County. So you have a packet there, and on the very first page you'll see a list of the funding that we have brought into the county to help expand our role this last year. The overall funding is just over $500,000 in funding. Some of that is directly through USU. I don't know if that's on there. Did we put that? I don't think we did. Okay. Anyway, but that first page I think is key for you to know how hard we are working to make sure that we have timely and important information to share out with the residents here in our county. There's a few other pages in this handout that you can read at your leisure, put it on your nightstand. But I did want to do just a quick summary of our program areas in our office. I am the faculty person over Family and Consumer Sciences and the 4-H after school programming. I just wanted to highlight that one of the things that I do on a regular basis is share out information in our Iron County Today newspaper, and a lot of those are picked up by other media throughout the state and USU. They have an Ask an Expert column, and so I keep busy with that. I do interviews over the phone. I've done a couple of scary TV things, and it's not my thing. But anyway, I also, this time of year, well, actually, there's no off time anymore to test pressure counter gauges, because now the people that hunt know that they can come in and get their pressure gauges tested so that they can bottle their elk or their deer venison. And it's we have some that even want to do antelope, which I can't quite fathom, but anyway. But we also have a live food preservation course that we run people through to help people answer a lot of their questions, even though I do answer still quite a few every year. We do email, face-to-face, over the phone. Okay, next, John. I'm also over our nutrition program in our office. We call it Create Better Health. There are 2 ambassadors, as their title, that serve our low income and populations that may be at risk for hunger, or they just don't have the capacity to come to programming. We take it to them. In fact, one of our nutrition assistants or ambassadors is out at Newcastle today. She'll be at E-Valley all day today, go through the whole school and do a lesson for every class that's out there. And we do that once a month to make sure we reach those people over there. They love to see new faces, and especially if they bring a snack. They also do social media. They are on Facebook, Instagram. They do Reels. And you can see that their reach is pretty widespread. They have been in 2 farmers markets this year, and that helps spread the word about the healthy eating. So the after-school mentoring program is still alive and well. I have 10 part-time staff that are in 5 schools here in the district, and they do a fantastic job helping youth have a safe place to belong after school. If they don't have an option to go home or be alone at home, we try to provide something there for them. They learn social skills, life skills. They go through 4-H projects, and they learn how to work as teams. So we think it's great, and we bring the families together with the youth once a month at our family night out. These are other people that work in our office with our 4-H program, which is strong. I don't think we've had quite the spread and depth of 4-H as we have had the last 2 to 3 years. In addition to our overall 4-H program and hitting the teen leadership, our STEM education and youth service learning are both great programming. In fact, our STEM coordinator and our youth service learning coordinator are both residents of Parowan, and they've been able to really expand things over here, partnering with the library, with a lot of other officials. So we're just pleased as punch to have all these people working and serving our youth and our adult volunteers. You know, just some pictures that we have put in there just where you can see some of the activities that they've been doing. We brought a dairy cow and a cowgirl, I don't know, to the fair. What's that?
That was the parade.
Yeah, at the parade. The fair parade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Labor Day.
Right. Anyway, we're happy to have Becca with us, Rebecca Esplin. She has some goals and some things that when she started, she followed Randall, and he had been here for he'd been here for 2 years, I think. And he had started some projects that needed to just be wrapped up. And so, to Becca's credit, she has been trying to get those to conclude so she can move on and go in the direction that she would like to. So there are some things here that she will continue that have been with our office for years, but she has some other things that she can do. And did you draw that? No, but she is an artist. She'll doodle and just do a drawing of cattle and hand it to somebody or whatever. She's we're going to use her a lot for graphic design. And then we welcome Josh. Josh is a native of southern Utah, grew up in, can we say Washington County? Yeah, down in Washington City. But he's been at USU for 6 years getting his education, and he has all but his thesis completed for his master's program. He brings a lot of experience in irrigation and a lot of. Someday we're going to have him tell you all about his research that he's been doing, but we wanted to keep within our limit this morning. But you can see some things that he has planned, and this high tunnel thing I think it'll take off really well. And he's great to go out and meet with people. I hope I'm not telling anything he wouldn't say if he was up here, but he doesn't like to just give people the answer. He likes to get the why behind his answer. So he may take a little bit longer to answer a question, but it's very much appreciated by the people that don't just want to take something at face value. So we appreciate him for that. Okay, so with that, that is our report. I wanted to express gratitude for the ongoing support that we've had ever since I've been here, and I've been here for 29, almost 30 years in Iron County, and I've never had better support than what we have right now. So thank you for the funding that we receive. I'm grateful that you'll let me work out some problems that we have once in a while, issues with budgets and such, but we have a wonderful budget that we try to take good care of. And again, just thank you so much, and I'm really going to miss my job. But thank you.
We're going to miss you. Thank you,
We're going to
Kathy.
miss you.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
you,
Kathy.
Kathy. She's been just so fabulous. She really has been so great. We are going to miss her. I hope we get even a tenth of what she's been for the last 30 years for Iron County.
All right, Wade with Fleet.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. You've been great to work with, and I'm going to miss you. So, and thanks to you, Commissioners, as well for your support in building of this department. So it's been a little challenging, but you guys have been great supporting and establishing this department, and continue to move forward and make it work. So it's getting there. So we have a total of 267 assets that we're maintaining. Vehicles, some equipment, heavy equipment, trailers, ATVs. And as far as the quick turnover vehicles go, we've done 61 since 2021. So that's what we've been able to move over, to replace. And so we still have about another 45 to go. So we'll just keep working on that and get them as we can. We have several buy and hold vehicles still that are getting to the point where they're gonna need to be replaced too. That's about 35 of those. Auction vehicles, we're still moving those out as we can. Still getting pretty good prices for them. Sold 23 so far. We still have a lot to go. That's going to be an ongoing process, of course, as we have the turnover rolling. But as far as all the older vehicles, we still have probably, I don't know, there's still probably 45 left.
Feel like we're keeping up? Behind a little bit?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I don't want to flood that market. I feel like it's been working well. I just put a few on each week, and you know, people kind of fight over that. I feel like if I put a whole bunch on there at once, they might pick and choose. So it's been working well. We've been getting pretty good money for them. So I feel like I've gotten a little bit behind on that. Maintenance and repairs, super busy enough that we can't keep up, which is good. I mean, we're moving things through as fast as we can. We're starting to do some upfitting on the search and rescue vehicles, as well as we're going to start printing out some of the logos. I was able to get the design and stuff for the Sheriff's Department from PVI, and we can do that upstairs in the sign shop. We've had a few vehicles that have had accidents that we're just going to print that off, put it on ourselves. But the search and rescue, they've designed a new logo design. We're going to print that off and put it on their vehicles, on their trailers, so everything looks the same. It's pretty mismatched right now, so but we wanted to start with the upfitting there. It's a little more simpler, but that'll move us into the sheriff's department. So we ordered vehicles for next year through Cedar Motor Company. So they actually honored the state contract, but they were actually a little bit cheaper than that.
That's great.
So it's good. So it'll be logistically, it'll be better just to be able to get the vehicles across the street basically instead of
That's really good news.
400 miles
It is.
up the road. So our fleet pool has been working fairly well. The reservation system's still struggling, but with our new fleet program, I'm still working with them to design the new one that they've been working on, and we get that hopefully put on by the first of the year. So other than that, Kyle and David, the mechanics, they're awesome. They super hard workers, and they're doing a great job. So
That's great.
Good.
very educated and willing to work, and so it's been great having them. So other than that, you guys have any questions?
No,
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Wade.
Let's see, HR, Jennifer.
Right, good morning.
Morning.
We are currently under budget and do not foresee any current or anticipated budget issues for the remainder of 2023. Since the last HR report, we've posted, interviewed, and hired 1 full-time corrections deputy, 1 full-time deputy clerk, 1 full-time personal property assessor, 1 full-time CJC forensic interviewer, 1 full-time road maintenance worker, 1 full-time landfill technician, and 1 full-time sheriff's office patrol secretary. Since the last HR report, we've had 7 internal promotions, 2 promotions in the Sheriff's Office Patrol, 4 promotions in the Sheriff's Office Corrections, and 1 promotion in the fair or events, which will be later today. Currently, we are in the process of recruiting and hiring 5 full-time positions and 1 part-time position. So those are the 4 full-time deputies in the Sheriff's Office Corrections, 1 full-time deputy in the Sheriff's Office Patrol, and 1 part-time parks custodian. Points of interest, turnover from January to November of 2023 is 14.11%, or 35 positions. Compare that to the same time frame last year. We were at 14.92, or 37 positions, so we're a little bit down. So that's great. We had our insurance open enrollment last week. We had a great turnout. We've got a couple to track down, but we'll get that within the next week or so. I personally want to thank Betsy and Carrie because they put in a tremendous amount of time getting the prep work done, and it runs so smoothly. They've got it down to a science, so I really appreciate their work, and they really benefit the county immensely. So I can't thank them enough for what they do. We had our accident review board hearing a few weeks ago and closed out all of the accidents for year-to-date 2023. Hopefully we won't have a lot more for the beginning of the year. I'll be attending the UAC convention this week and look forward to meeting with all of the other counties' human resource directors throughout the state. It's really great to kind of collaborate with them and get back and forth from them. We had a few milestone anniversaries this quarter, celebrating 5 years, Robert Stammet in Sheriff's Office Corrections, Michael Ferguson's in Sheriff's Office Patrol, and then celebrating 10 years, Pierce Robertson's Sheriff's Office Corrections. And then on the back page is just kind of the breakdowns on the employee turnover as well as our workman's comp, if you have any questions on that. So, any other questions altogether?
Could you remind us what EMOD is and how our EMOD...
Oh my goodness, and I love it when you ask that. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm just going to read it because it's kind of a very complex... Anyway, it reflects the loss experience of the policyholder compared with payroll exposure during the same time period. Is that clear as mud? Yeah.
Dense mud.
Yeah, right.
But like, how many workers' comp claims did we have compared to everybody else and compared to usual, right?
That's what EMOD usually does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in other words,
they kind of put it all together in this big
And the bigger question, and I like to talk about it because it's like, which way are we
And
trending?
you can explain it a lot better than me, so.
Well, that was it. You know, you
Oh,
nailed
okay.
it. Yes.
Good.
But I don't know. I don't remember what our EMOD is. It seemed like it went down this year.
It's 0.94 right now.
You have that?
They do anticipate it going up. They did mention that last time we met with them. We're hoping it does not reach 0.99 because after that, as soon as it hits 1,
Rates go up.
rates go up. So
We've,
we're
and
hoping
we've
to
been fortunate
keep-
that we've been under 1
Correct.
from
For
the
a very-
rates perspective.
Yeah. We haven't been over 1 since 2012.
And 1 is significant because 1 is what the average is. In other words,
Correct.
we've been floating along below average on workers' comp claims. And that's a
Exactly.
direct correlation with training and
Absolutely.
safety practices by employees and things.
And in all honesty, if we did not have deer in this area, we'd be really good.
Seriously.
That's
Speaking of accident
9 times
review
out of 10, that's what we're talking about during the accident review board.
Yeah.
So
We had our old lieutenant used to call them the long-legged
Large
dogs.
dogs.
Yeah.
Yep. And we would do great, and we still do really great. We have employees that are very safety minded, and it reflects that. So
It has a lot to do with, I think, the culture in the county wide, but also the departments.
Right.
So I've taken over your report.
oh
I'm
my
sorry.
gosh, no, I appreciate that, and I'm glad I put that on there every time because I like talking about it. So thank you.
Paula, I'd put my glasses on and I have to take them off to read. So
I know it's very small print, right?
there it is.
On the back here also, the turnover has gone down.
It has. We're down a couple,
Nice.
so I shouldn't knock on wood, but yeah,
I know.
It's definitely. I'm hopeful closing out this year under what we had last year.
Nice.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks,
Appreciate
Jennifer.
it.
Appreciate it. Justice Court. Lori.
Morning.
Morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You. Pretty much the usual handouts. I just want to also introduce and welcome Julie Sanders. Julie's our senior judicial assistant, and she's just instrumental in our office, especially when it comes to accounting features and trust. And I just can't say enough and thank Julie for all she does. We're staffing, we're running fully staffed, and what that means is 6 judicial assistants, Julie as the senior supervisor, myself, and then our judge, Judge Dunlap. From a budget standpoint, we are probably going to come in just slightly under budget, and a lot of that's probably due to that contracted service line. So we probably overestimated what we thought we would need in the event that Judge Dunlap was going to take regular vacations or have sick leave, and we based that on an 8-hour workday. Well, if we need a judge temporarily, and Judge Carling has been coming in and substituting, it's only going to be to cover hearings. So it's only going to be 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 4 hours. So we're going to, as we discussed in the budget meeting, reduce that. But the good news, and the reason I mention that is, and I've talked about this, one area in which we're going to go over budget is interpreter fees. And this is kind of dictated by the state in the sense of the state and state courts have to pay a certain amount to interpreters. And that went from just a year and a half ago, $39.80 an hour to $52 an hour that interpreters are now paid. Still, our Spanish interpreters live here in Parowan, and they are now receiving mileage for one way. So that means $64.56 instead of $39.80. And then anybody that is assisting us with, because we don't pay, we have them do WebEx, and that's our specialty languages like Chinese, Mandarin, Middle Eastern languages, dialects, French. We get some out that are a little out there, but they are willing to do WebEx. But they're a minimum of 2 hours. So whether they're on there for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, the reality is they're getting paid $104 an hour. And if the Justice Court wants to be able to take advantage of these state authorized, and which we need to have state approved, then we need to pay what the state courts are paying. So that's why that budget, we're about $800 over right now, and we still got 2 months left. So we'll probably be, I would say, a good 1,500 over budget, but we've accounted for that in 2024. That was one of the increases that we asked for. So just a little explanation about that. The next sheet is just that recap where I always compare the year prior to the current year. So in 2023, DUIs are up 29 cases over this time period, and this is going through September. So I'm always working from a quarterly basis. Citations as a whole were up about 1,400 over last year, and the sad ones that we don't like to see, obviously the DUIs, but the domestic violence is up 49 cases over 2022. And possessions are down. That just doesn't seem to be either not happening as much or not cited as much. I'm not sure. Any questions on any of that? And then I moved down into the collected, dispersed, and retained, and we've got slightly more collected, more dispersed, but more retained within the county as well. And then the only other thing is I always provide you with those citation comparisons, but recapping that we're about 1,400 cases ahead of this time period last year. So we're processing, a little bit more. And we're staying busy. And much like John, with the accolades to his staff, I have to say the Justice Court and our staff just running so efficiently, so effectively, so well, interacting with one another. It's a great staff of people. Just a lot of camaraderie. And it's a nice place to be.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Lori,
Okay.
appreciate it. Good report.
Thanks.
All right, Candace, Public Defender report.
Morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
going to have to get with Chanel for next year to see if she'll put me next to Fleet, because I feel like my report would be better suited before these ladies that do such a great job on their report. I have a small department. So I'll make it brief. We too will be coming in under budget. The only expenditures that I think we'll be having is a few trials that are scheduled. So I know that there's some invoices that are still being processed for defense resources, but again, those are slated to be coming, it'll still come in under budget. And then we still have a little bit of our training budget that I think will be utilized as well, but again, not planning to go over. So far so good as far as our new hires. They've done well to pick up the caseload, and I think the judges are enjoying them, and the county attorney's office I haven't heard any negative. So I think we're good with the new hires, and hopefully they just they like their position as well. So as far as employee and turnover, I don't think that's going to be a problem this year. Hopefully like I said, we can just keep our staff the way it is. And then the budget, again, I met with you guys obviously a couple weeks ago. No increases or requests for that. So I hopefully, knock on wood, we just have a quiet year. Does anybody have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Good
All right,
report.
thanks.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right, I guess we've got everybody commission reports. Who wants to go first? Marilyn, you want to go?
Go ahead, please.
On the 31st, on Halloween, we had a discussion with NRCS, the Coal Creek Stevensville ditch. That was the one that flooded, and just talking about flooding and what we can do about that. The NRCS has a solution to use one of the big pits that we use for recharge to be able to take that water off and put it off the top so that more can't go down the ditch and flood down that way. I know that Richard Wilson and his staff have been really on top of keeping those channels, inspecting those channels and making sure that those channels are open. And then the next November 1st, there was a Iron County risk map program meeting over in Cedar City, And George talked a little bit about that. They had the maps all laid out there, and all of the different communities were able to look at those FEMA maps, the flooding maps, and add to, you know, they didn't have every single place that flooded. So Richard Wilson, our engineer, really got into the depth of that. He was there. Reed, our planner, of course, George, emergency, Jared from IT was there, and then a lot of the cities and towns were there to look at those maps. And this is just a preliminary to get that information. I know they were pretty amazed that on our Quichapa area that we just did that ordinance on how much they had to build up or the areas that they couldn't build on. They didn't have any of that information. Of course, Jared was the one that went around with the GPS back in 2005 and did that mapping, and we're just thrilled that we have that information now that we didn't have before. So we also had our Iron County Council on Governments. That's a meeting that we have every other month. It was hosted by Enoch. This time we go to all the different entities. It's really a great meeting. We also talk about with UDOT our transportation areas and what our priorities are. They keep a map, ongoing map that shows the ones that we really are, you know, which south interchange down by Walmart is right at the very top, and you can imagine why, because that is an issue. I was out there the other day, and I think I had to wait for 3 lights to get through there. So they're absolutely aware of that, and trying to get some funding for that to get some help with that interchange, because it is a problem. On the 4th, we were supposed to have our awards banquet at the Sheriff's Department, and it ended up at the last minute having to be canceled. It was they had Mo Bettas that was supposed to do the food for that. I don't know exactly what happened, but they decided not to go ahead with that. I was very disappointed in that company. I thought maybe they would step up for our Sheriff's Department. Myself, I wouldn't want to upset the Sheriff's Department, just saying. And that was kind of a sad incident. I thought they're going to reschedule that. It's a great thing that they do for the sheriffs, because there's a lot of them that need recognition because they do great things in our community. I was on a Zoom call talking about I'm on a couple of different committees that talk about the Zions. They include Iron County because it is part of, you know, our community with having Southern Utah. And they were talking about the oversized vehicle. It was a stakeholder meeting, and it sounds like in the next couple of years, you know how they stop for the tunnel that goes through Zion, how they sometimes will stop and escort people through the tunnel. I think in the next couple of years that will probably go away. That's what I got out of this Zoom meeting. And so that may affect some of our folks, that because it's a lot further around instead of being able to go through that tunnel. On the 9th, we had a weed board meeting again. We've done a lot of that with Becca, and we're through the budget hearings. We are going to hire a full-time weed board supervisor. Wade Adams has graciously told us that he would be over that until we get somebody going. Eventually, I'd like to see that be its own department, but it's going to be kind of a new thing. We had it with the road department before, and it was only half and half. The state really would like us to have a full-time weed person. There's a lot of grants and a lot of mapping that needs to be done with the weed, noxious weed, and so we will have that. And then with some of those funds, those grant funds, we're hoping to be able to pay for our part-time seasonal folks. So, and I think that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just hit some highlights really quick. Marilyn talked about the NRCS flood plan meeting. Had an opportunity to visit a new tourist attraction they hope to be online here in the next few months, called Outpost X, which is west of town, a long ways on dirt roads.
It's out by my ranch.
It is it's pretty close out there. I had an opportunity to visit with them, with Maria, our tourism director. It's kind of an upscale property. It's I'm going to say Star Wars themed, even though I don't know that legally they can say Star Wars themed, but it's really kind of cool. It's out kind of next to a dry lake bed, which they know isn't all the way dry, so it's all built up, and there's going to be walkways in between everything, and they've got these little cruiser things that you can cruise around, race on the dry lake bed. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time again having town hall meetings, podcasts, meeting with a bunch of different people in regards to the jail and the bond information. Had an opportunity to go to Care and Share. They received a donation from Molina Healthcare. Talk about just some of their needs, some of their they've got some really cool plans as far as housing, affordable housing, and things like that. Kind of able to look at their vision. I sit on the public safety board for Southwest Tech College. We met. They're getting ready to graduate their first class of paramedic students. They've also got a new fire academy. Those things are going really well. Able to really get some local training to be able to feed into our local departments and give our local departments a resource for folks that aren't just starting off from scratch. They actually have some training and some certifications when they can apply for our local departments. George talked about met with Darren Bushman, as the new director of EMS for the state. We do have some responsibilities that fall back onto the county for EMS, so we're working through that to figure out how to best approach that. We had our transient room tax grant presentation meeting. A lot of good projects and a lot of worthwhile things we'll have the opportunity to help support there. Had our monthly airport board meeting. Nothing groundbreaking came out of this one. I met with Justin Osmond, who's a producer for, I don't have it in front of me, I can't remember, it's kind of the Pioneer Jubilee that they're planning on putting on this July 24th in conjunction with SUU. It's a program that ran down in St. George at Dixie State for quite a while. Their cast members were dropping over from heat stroke a lot. It was an issue. They were more than 100 degrees during that time, and so after COVID that kind of shut it down, and they've reevaluated and want to move that production to Cedar City. So that should be something really cool. And then I met with Shakespeare, did a production facility tour. That's just they're going to come to hotel and restaurant tax boards for some funding for some upgrades there, so we can put eyeballs on some of their needs there. So those are the highlights.
Okay, thanks, Mike. All right. we had our behavioral health and steering committee meetings 5 county meetings last week. They went good. Attended County Planning Commission. I also want to mention our appreciation to Mike Worthen for the letter he drafted in support of our counties to the east of us, Garfield and Kane, as they continue to fight the just the overreach of the BLM and other agencies shutting down grazing, and different things are just devastating to those who rely on public lands for their livelihoods. But we were happy to support them. Marilyn mentioned the NRCS plan with the pit. I attended the Cedar City Planning Commission meeting and spoke in support of that. It was passed with a positive recommendation unanimously for the city council.
Which pit were they thinking?
It's the pit that Cedar. So there's the Western Rock pit, and then south of that is another pit that's the Cedar City owns. And Staker Parsons is leasing that right now. They just renewed a 10-year lease. The discussion has been as to do an RFP on the old sewer treatment plant property just north of the current Western Rock operations, and do an RFP. And I mean, there's other Sunrock and Western Rock, Staker Parsons being the parent company of that, and Mel Clark, others have expressed interest in that land to mine gravel. But we would like to see that Cedar City pit vacated at least during the recharge season, and also in anticipation of the NRCS's project to do some spillways and some things off of Coal Creek that we can automate filling that with a push of a button. You could control gates and allow, if things got crazy in the middle of the night, we're flying L flooded and they just had too much CFS going down the creek, we could open that up, carve some of that off, peel some of that off into the pit to relieve some of that downstream. And there's just a lot, but the first step in that process was to basically get, because the Cedar City Council is a legislative body that would make that decision to allow that pit to be used because it's Cedar City property. So
is that one south of the Western pit that we had used
correct
before?
Yes, and it's being mined by Western Rock
awesome.
Right now. So, and the NRCS is planning to go and speak at the Cedar City Council and do a presentation on that.
There's other places for them to mine during that time too, right?
Well, there would be if the Cedar City approved this other location to be mined. I mean, they have other places, but they let us use that pit, which is right by Airport Road, just west of the Schmidt pit this year, which was really, really good of them to do that. So they've been a really good partner in that. Let's see. I was on a call. I was contacted some time ago by the Southern Utah Veterans Association. Jerry Van Iwarden and Chuck Waddell. They have some big plans. They want to create a PTSD center. They want to create a PTSD center to help those with PTS, especially from the military. They've got licensing to do a Vietnam Wall. They want to create a Vietnam Wall on some property. Back when I was on the Cedar City Council, the Veterans Administration bought 5 acres right above the liquor store, and they plan to. It's a 5-acre VA cemetery to be able to take care of the veterans for burial and their dependent children and their spouses in that location. And there was some talk about possibly partnering. The Southern Utah Veterans Association wanted to partner with them. I contacted Senator Lee. He had Emily with his staff set up a Zoom call with some representatives from the VA. We had a very productive discussion. They're quite a ways down the road on that 5-acre parcel, so I think they're going to move forward. They actually have they actually have a notice to proceed with the contractor there. And it was interesting because I've always wondered, when you dig in that material up there's boulders the size of your pickup truck, and so I thought, how's that going to work with a graveyard? But I guess they it helped me understand it. They bury crypts in the ground and then landscape it, and then they can open those up and bury then they're not digging like
All
the
the
cemetery
time.
where they're digging a
Yeah.
grave. The crypts are already buried in there, and then that was interesting to me, and so that made a lot more sense. But anyway, the Veterans Administration are continue to look for some property to do some cool stuff if they can. It's a heavy lift, and they've got big plans, but you can't ever do it if you don't try. So
How are they going to fund that?
well, it was interesting on this call. They were hoping to maybe partner with the VA, and actually some good things came out. There's a representative flying out from the VA in December to have a meeting with us, and then but they've got some funding available for medical for veterans, and so with the PTSD center that follows right along with the medical side of that. So there might be some opportunities there for them to receive some funding. Jacob Dean, a local metal sculpture, built this. You guys may have seen it in the parade. It's a statue of a veteran, and it's life size. He spent thousands of hours on it. It's really impressive. I know they got 80,000 brass rounds casings
50K.
donated, 50 caliber rounds. Brass rounds that they're going to solder together and make a wave behind the soldier. It's really, really impressive, and that represents, I think, how many veterans have lost their lives due to PTSD. It's really touching. And so anyway, that's worked on that a little
I
bit.
think
this
one of
week.
the people on that board also thought that he would have some money coming his way from an investment or something, that he was going to help fund all of that, and I guess it hasn't transpired or something, which is unfortunate because he really wanted to put that money toward it.
Right.
It's a great cause.
Hopefully they can be successful in their efforts there. Had a call with some legislators up north. There was some folks I know up north that were talking about just providing food locally within the state of Utah, keep it in the state of Utah. I had a good call with that this last week. But anyway, that's just a summary of what some things I had going. And if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and let's take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll resume this meeting. Thank you. All right. We ready, John?
Go ahead.
Okay. We'll resume our county commission meeting and appreciate those who have joined us. Adam, glad you made it with all the traffic. We'll be talking with you a little later in the agenda. We may need to, depending on Chad Dotson, our county attorneys, I know got some court commitments and he's hurrying to get over here in time. But if we have to put him at he and Wendy Jessen at the very end, we'll move that. Might need to move agenda item number 3 a little bit. So we'll go ahead. Agenda item number 1, which is public comments. This is 3-minute time limit set per speaker for public comment. Should not repeat other comments, only for items not on the agenda. So if you have agenda items coming forward, we want to address them. There's a comment. Please state your name and be nice.
My name is Carol Barker. I have 3 items I would like to bring up. The first one is the information that's been presented at the town hall meetings. Sheriff Carpenter has been sharing this paragraph 2 information about what the bond is going to cost the average homeowner, about $153. What I have not heard is the disclaimer in paragraph 3 that the above information is just an estimate and is not a limit to the amount of taxes that the board may be required to levy. So I was looking at my tax statement that we all receive, and I was curious if the bond does pass, what the line item amount will be on the back as we all get over our sticker shock and turn it over and see what the tax rate's going to be for that bond, because I have not seen that information yet. And I don't know if it's out there yet. I was told at that meeting that it is a limited bond. Is that true? It is a GO limited bond. So if it is, what limits are on there that you can raise the taxes each year? The second item that I have concerns about is a slide that was presented in the town hall that compared the Beaver County Jail with the Iron County Jail. The Beaver County Jail is twice the size. It has a $8 million revenue stream, but it has a positive flow at the end of the year, and their budget is around $6 million. The Iron County Jail is much less, but its budget is about the same. It's $5 million something. It's similar in size. And when I asked why the county jail is in the red, and if that happens, if it is in the red often, several employees that were sitting to this side chuckled and laughed and said that the Iron County Jail has been in the red pretty much since it opened. And so my concern is you're asking the taxpayers to co-sign onto a $90 million bond, expecting that this bigger, brand new facility is going to make money. The third item I want to address has been bothering me since August. I toured the jail with 4 other people. Sheriff Carpenter met us there. Mr. Gibbs, who I believe is with the maintenance department, is actually the one that gave the tour. He said several times on that tour that he either didn't do a maintenance project or he patched something because, quote, we are getting a new building or we are going to be moving into a new building. So these are items that have not been maintained for 3 years. Sheriff Carpenter has stated that the construction time is 2 years. So that's a window of about 5 years where the maintenance has not been kept up to the best of the ability. In the letter that was put out, the for argument, it's brought up that the current state of the roof is in disrepair. We all saw those pictures in August where the rain was coming in. And if the rain is still coming in the roof, it hasn't been repaired. So my question is, has the roof ever been repaired? Has it been replaced? And why not? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comments?
Morning, Rose Clement. I do have a couple of questions on this morning's comments or updates from the departments. One of the things is, what is Code Blue?
What is what?
Code Blue.
Oh, Code Blue. Mike, you.
It's a piece of legislation that was passed last year, basically where when we reach a certain temperature that the health department, the state health department can issue basically what they call a Code Blue, which means the temperature has reached a point that might be dangerous to be outside. It mandates us to allow our homeless population to occupy public space, basically, to keep them out of the cold.
Provide blankets and stuff.
It provides. It's new legislation. Anyway, our emergency manager George is really up on it. Really, what it is it's an unfunded mandate from the state for us to provide a whole bunch of resources and all sorts of stuff to keep people warm when it's cold. So that's
Okay. I was a little curious when we keep. Maybe I've.
Ma'am, this isn't really a back and forth.
Oh no.
Public comment.
Nobody,
we allow
no,
it.
Nobody.
If you want,
you don't need to respond.
Well, and we did out of courtesy. We do
Thank
sometimes, but we if it's
Not really a Q&A.
Yeah,
We can be.
it's not a back
It's their
and forth.
choice, I believe.
If you want to put it on the agenda, but you can state what your concerns, and we can.
Okay, just one of the things that is concerning me is the spending going on in the county. It just seems like everybody's getting larger government bodies. We're using Starlink, which has been presented in a useful manner, but I know Starlink is really expensive. I checked in it personally. That's a high cost item. Just kind of looks like everybody's taking trips, and I don't agree with all the spending. I think what's going on in our world right now, what's going on in our county and our state, that the spending needs to stop. There's my comment.
Okay, thank you. And you could ask George back here, but he mentioned Starlink for the public safety issue. You could maybe offline talk to George about that.
We did purchase it for the county.
Well, George, we
used federal funds for it and not county funds.
We'll go to any other public comments. Seeing none, we'll go to the agenda item number 2, discussion and possible approval of challenge cost share agreement for construction and improvement for the Cedar Mountain Winter Recreation Parking Area. Mike.
Like we're the Iron County Natural Resources. This challenge cost share agreement is an agreement that the federal government requires when there's a lot of parties involved and there's quite a bit of money, and it allows the movement of money, transfer money, to take care of the initial agreement. This agreement is in coordination or kind of oversees the Cedar City Mountain non-motorized and motorized parking, recreation parking area. And it just allows the movement of that money. The Forest Service has what they call an RS-2477 rural schools grant for this. Iron County has a grant through outdoor recreation. And then the partners, UDOT is contributing about I think $318,000.
Tourism also, right?
Tourism. is
Free.
including $100,000. Iron County has included $50,000 for in-kind plus another $55,000 to pay for the improvements on the sides of the road for the parking lanes or the turning lanes.
Turning lanes, yeah.
Yep, and that's a contract with Mel Clark, and he's finished with that, and then next spring they will pave it. Anyway, that's what this agreement does. It just allow the movement of money mainly into the county so the county can pay the bills for this project. Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I would move for approval of the challenge cost share agreement for construction and improvement for the Cedar Mountain Winter Recreation Parking Area.
I would second it.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you,
Okay.
Mike. Appreciate it.
John, are you going to get that
Yes.
signed, or
Do you want me to just scan that and get it to you, or?
Yes.
Okay.
You'll just scan the signature page.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Okay, thanks.
Wendy, is Chad close? You know? Okay.
Should we? You could maybe.
Should
move
we
to
delay
other
that one?
item?
Well, we'll delay it. We'll just put it at the very end if we have to. We'll go ahead and convene as Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency and go to item number 4. ICCD and RNA Resolution 2023-1, approval of designating a survey area, authorizing the preparation of draft community reinvestment project area plans and budgets, and authorizing and directing all necessary action by the agency staff and legal counsel for Dutch Cowboy Solar and Parowan Solar. Adam, thank you.
Yep. By way of introduction, I'm Adam Long. I'm the attorney for the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency, aka the Redevelopment Agency. I've had the pleasure of representing the agency for probably pushing 10 years now. It's been a little bit since I've been here, so thanks for having me. I'll give you just a little bit of background of where this fits in the process, and I'm happy to answer questions in the meeting, offline, however you guys, whatever would be most helpful. The way the creation of a redevelopment project area works, it's a process. The very first step is what we call a survey resolution, which is on the agenda here. That's essentially the agency, so you as acting as the agency board, circling an area or areas on a map where there might be potential for project area development. In this case, there are 2 proposed solar projects by different companies, both in the county, and both rolled into one resolution. So essentially what this resolution does is gives the authorization for me and other county employees and officials to work on this process. This is the very first step. No commitments, no funding authorized, really nothing other than saying, okay, these are the areas that we want to look at. After that's done, we go through and create a draft project area plan and project area budget. Those 2 documents are the who, what, why, when, where, how of the project area, or in this case, project area is plural. What kind of development it is, why it's beneficial for the county and the citizens of the county, some of the financial details, some of the nuts and bolts, land use, zoning, surrounding property, all things required by statute. At that point, that's the creation of the project area. Still no funding authorized one way or another. That all comes with interlocal agreements between the redevelopment agency and the various tax entities. So county, school district, water district, and that might be all of them in these areas. So at that point, that's where the funding is authorized. From money that would otherwise go to the tax entities would go to the agency. And then there's a separate agreement, which is really the final piece in the puzzle.
And could we stop right there? So Iron County, and this has been such an issue this year, but Iron County collects the taxes, but they don't all go to us. And because of that, you've got the Water Conservancy District or the city or whomever, whichever municipalities, the school district, that project happens to fall in. When you say interlocal, could you elaborate on why that's important and what that means?
Sure. So when we say interlocal agreement, generally that just means any agreement between 2 public bodies. In this case, it means an agreement between the agency and, we'll use the school district, for example, where the school district says, okay, for this particular project in this particular area, some or all or a portion of the tax increment, so the new tax revenues generated by this development, get paid to the redevelopment agency rather than getting distributed, as normal by the county. For example, if the agency's getting 60% of the tax increment, for every $100 of taxes paid by a given project, the county would distribute 40 of that based on the normal proportions to the county, school district, water conservancy district. The rest of that money would go to the agency to be used for the defined term in statute is project area development, but really to be used for making this particular project happen in whatever form that takes, whether it's an incentive or effectively a tax rebate, or could be installation of infrastructure or any number of other things depending on the particular project. Is that enough?
No, that's great. It's just that they're agreeing that we're diverting some of that money that would otherwise have gone to them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And like I said, that is 3 or 4 steps down the process. And then the final.
But you guys go to each one of those other taxing entities and present the same thing.
Correct.
Right. So we don't. I mean, we're not
final say.
on that, right?
So we're the agency
They
that
can say, wait,
administers
time
it.
out, we don't agree with this, right? And
Yep, absolutely.
Water board or the school district.
The agency has no ability to force any participation from any of the other taxing entities.
Just the power of persuasion.
And really, it's the same basic pitch as will be made here, that this is a project that is beneficial for these reasons, and it makes sense, and then it's just a request, and they are free to decide yes, no, or renegotiate.
If one of the entities says no, does that kill the project, or do they kind of negotiate separately?
So
we haven't run into that I know of.
No, we haven't run into that. So from a legal perspective, each entity decides for itself if it's willing to participate, under what terms, for what time period. So in theory, you could have just the county participating and the other taxing entities say no thanks, or
with different terms,
or with different terms. Any combination of those. As far as from a legal perspective. Now, whether the proposed project works without everyone's participation is another story. Obviously, when developers have come in, they are asking for everyone's participation, but certainly it's a negotiation. Nothing gets set in stone by what the agency does.
And remind me, do we do interlocals? And I'm sorry, I'm taking over. Do we do interlocals with, not really ourselves, but I can't remember if the agency does an interlocal with Iron County and with the municipal building.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So it's
just like another entity, correct?
We are technically sitting as a separate legal entity here, in the same room with the same people as the county commission meeting, but as the redevelopment agency, not the county. So
were the project to move forward, there would eventually be an interlocal between the ICC DNRA, the Community Development Agency,
Correct.
and Iron County.
Correct.
Right, just like with the school district, or just like
Exactly
with
the
the water
same. And obviously, we would expect there to be less drama between those two, since the same people making decisions. But absolutely the same.
But convene separately.
The same type of agreement exists or can exist between the county as it does between the agency and the school district.
Thank you. That's good clarification.
And then the final piece, and this is admittedly a very quick and rough sketch of how the process works. The final piece is an agreement between the agency and, in this case, the solar developer. Essentially, the agreement says, okay, these are the things you have to do in order to get this assistance from the redevelopment agency. Those are things like build the project in the size and scope that you've said you're going to, operate the project, pay your taxes, and depending on the project, any number of other requirements. And that agreement determines what that developer, what that business has to do in order to receive the agency's assistance.
So if I could interject there, so each April, those are due. We make those due as a kind of an internal deadline. That's part of the project agreement. We have a checklist that we go through with each project. Danny Stewart, now David, will go through those and make sure that they are operating, and we require statements from the power company showing their operations, and whatever those requirements are, and then those go before the commission. You've signed those, and that usually happens in April or May, and so that's when the agency approves those, then the treasurer's office actually releases those funds back as the reimbursement, which is called increment, and that goes back to the agency. And I just wanted to clarify that we don't just do that willy-nilly. That's we there's a structure that we put in place, and we're perhaps more rigid than other entities in applying that. I've had conversations with Adam over the years about some entities that just kind of rubber stamp it, and the money goes back even though they're not sure if it's actually all the requirements are being met. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that we take it very seriously.
Well, and we've been approving these for a long time.
Right.
Mike's been here a lot longer than Marilyn and I have, but we just wonder, or at least I wonder, are we giving away the farm when we don't need to be? Are we watching out for the taxpayer to the best? Because some of this stuff, for me at least, it's hard for me to understand it. Totally,
Sure.
Right? And it's complicated. So and I guess the example I used with Adam when I was talking to him before the meeting is when I was on the city council, and I won't mention the specific event, but we hosted it, and Cedar City's and this area, it's got a spirit of volunteerism that's very valuable to event organizers, and so. But this
they expect it.
But this
is
particular
what you're
event, they would
saying.
expect a lot. They would expect lots of free motel rooms and food and everything, man. And it was like, you know, at one point after so many times, I said, I don't know that we need to give so much, and we kind of cut a lot of it out, and they still came, right? So that's the balance I want to try to. And I guess you told me this is just the first step, that we can get into the weeds later on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So this does not commit anyone to do anything yet. It just allows the process to move forward. And that basic question of, are we giving away the farm? Are we being wise stewards of taxpayer dollars? The onus to convince the agency and you as agency board members of that is on each developer. We will request, their essentially pro forma financials saying, okay, this is what the project looks like. This is what it costs to build. This is what the expected revenues are from, probably a power purchase agreement with Rocky Mountain Power. I don't know for sure, but I think Rocky Mountain Power is probably the off-taker for both of these proposed projects. And then it's on you as the agency board members to say, okay, this seems reasonable. This seems like a project that will not happen unless we offer, it essentially is a property tax rebate. That's the form it takes at the end of the day. This project won't happen without this partial property tax rebate. It's also up to you to say, hey, we think it'll happen anyway, and
it's personal property tax.
It is almost all personal property
because it used to be property tax, but then it shifted to personal property, which is not as advantageous to the county. Correct?
So and that's kind of a deep rabbit hole where I know just enough to be dangerous. But the value in these projects is mostly personal property. We have a little bit of an increase in the real property value based on some improvements, and most of it just is coming out of Greenbelt. But of $100 million, 99% of that is personal property. It's the solar panels and the transformers and
that has shifted more and more to the taxpayers, as we all know, and so that concerns me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
I
happy.
think we need to look closer to this.
And I'm happy to talk through the details.
We'd appreciate that.
Yep.
Could you, in early days, it was a little bit simpler because we didn't have the housing element. Roughly, each project would pay $1 million a year. A big project would average about $1 million a year in tax, and then there would be a 70%, increment. So there would be $300,000 in new taxes collected for the project, and then the 70% would go to the agency, and then the distribution would happen. But are you comfortable talking about just how the legislation has changed with the housing element and kind of the nature of the projects as they were? We had small projects that were 50% for 10 years, and then these larger ones for anyway. Could you maybe talk about kind of the historical nature of it in our county?
Yeah, like I said, this is pushing 10 years now. So
yeah, we have some history.
We do have some history. So in the early days, we had a mix of large scale solar projects. So probably 50 megawatts and larger, and a handful of smaller solar projects, like 3 to 5 megawatts. Those smaller solar projects, I have not seen one of those in years. The way the power was purchased and sold under those was under different federal legislation. So there was some advantage to having small solar projects. Everything I've seen in essentially since the early years has been big utility scale solar projects, typically trending larger. From where we initially had 70 or 80 megawatt projects, they tend to be twice that size now, at least as far as proposed projects go. And then we've had some changes in legislation at the state level. Back in the day, pre 2016, we called these projects CDAs, or community development areas. In 2016, the legislature rewrote its Title 17C, where now all new projects are called community reinvestment areas. For projects like this, the real difference is essentially just a mandatory 10% housing allocation. So 10 cents of every dollar that comes in the agency's door, so money that would be used for promoting or encouraging this type of development, 10% of that gets set aside in a separate restricted account under the agency that has to be used for essentially affordable housing purposes. There's some more nuance to that, but 10% gets set aside no matter what.
And I'm so sorry, I'm just kind of, Luke, do you happen to know off the top of your head about how much is sitting there that we would have to?
We've never used that money.
We haven't used a penny yet, but but it grows because we have several projects since 2016, large projects, and that 10% is significant. And so at some point, I think the agency might want to have a discussion about, or multiple discussions on how best to use that, because that housing element is required. It's not an option when you're doing increment. And it doesn't matter if I speak out of turn. It doesn't matter what incentive you're offering. The 10% goes on the top of that. Is that correct?
Correct. And there are, as you would expect, a few exceptions to that rule, but for our purposes here, 10% goes to affordable housing, full stop. So that hasn't been a benefit to the county yet, but I would expect it to be useful at some point. And we don't have a deadline to use that money, and there are a variety of things you can do with it.
So one thought. So what's Heidi Miller's? What's her
City Housing Authority?
Housing Authority. Yeah. So they do low income housing projects. They buy projects and then do low income. Can that be like a grant to something like that to help somebody like that?
So.
Or?
In fact, could you?
Dan and I did talk to her like a year or so ago. Dan and I did talk to her about maybe future projects.
Okay.
That's kind of been
Okay.
Do you know of any uses of that money? Have you seen, from your perspective, other entities at all yet, or not really?
Yeah, it's been used in a variety of ways. Like I said, the general concept is affordable housing. That's typically defined as 80% of area median household income. There are other things it can be used for, and I'm happy to talk through that and sort of bounce ideas around. I think my advice for you as board members would be figure out where the needs are, or what the desired outcome is, and I can help that fit with what we're allowed to do.
I'm going to say, is there? You'd be able to help us to make sure we're within statute as far as putting that money to use.
Yep, absolutely. And
so to your point, Paul, I think some creative discussions can certainly happen, and then just make sure we're staying within the guardrails.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot easier to figure out. Okay, this is our end goal.
Oh, I just thought of Heidi. I'm not trying to favor her or anything.
Right.
That was one I thought of.
Well, and like I say, there's been conversations, and Dan and Luke sat down with her. She has probably the best infrastructure in place. But Mike and I sit on the Intergenerational Poverty Committee.
Right.
There are other considerations, not even that there's any competing ones per se, but I think I love the comfort of being able to think of creative solutions, because I've been proud of this board for the way you have come up with creative solutions, and then just to make sure that we're within the guardrails and make sure we're within code to make the most difference. Anyway, it's an interesting challenge that the law has kind of placed in the lap of the ICC DNRA by virtue of requiring that set aside.
And really, we've then turned around and placed that in the lap of the developer and saying, hey, there's 10% less that's in the pot for you. Intentionally so.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's not our choice. That's state law.
All right. So this is just the first step in this
Correct.
process. So is there any other questions or discussion?
I think
No, not on this. Not at this juncture.
And I would like to clarify it as well, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but that if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Adam.
Absolutely.
They become billable hours for him, and that's important because
it's important because my kids like to eat.
That's actually the most important reason. But I want the board to feel comfortable reaching out to Adam, because with the exception of very general agency-wide things that he does for us, if you have questions about a specific project, those fees are paid by the developer, and they have to be paid up front to the agency. So the money comes through the agency, but it comes from the developer, and it's okay if you all want to ask him questions, or if you want me to ask him questions. I'm just saying, because often we go, oh, billable hours, that's expensive, we don't want to do it. But and I'm not saying be wasteful, but he's a great resource.
Absolutely, and if you recall, this is probably 6 months or more ago, you approved reimbursement agreements with the developers for these projects where the agency essentially says to the developer, okay, we're expecting you to cover these setup costs because if this project never happens, that's a risk, and we don't want to spend taxpayer dollars, on something that is just a chance that will benefit you, but if it doesn't happen, we'd be left holding the bag. So we've tried very hard to protect the agency and taxpayer money throughout this process.
Okay. Well, I'm back to the shifting from property tax to personal property. I know that the depreciation on personal property drops fast, right?
Yep.
And I think that's been some of the concern with the taxpayer receiving much benefit, is it drops off so fast that it's
The depreciation.
Yeah. And I think that's a discussion worth having when you have these negotiations with the developers. Is that depreciation schedule is really aggressive, and it works to the detriment of the agency. And we've seen and I'm gonna state some numbers, and they might not be right, but basically, we have with the big projects early on, we would do a 15-year increment, right? And what you would have is the depreciation over time. I think the schedule the State Tax Commission uses like 5% good after 18 years or something like that. And I put solar panels on my house, and they're guaranteed to be 80% good for 25 years. But that was the closest schedule the State Tax Commission had. And we're talking about literally billions of dollars worth of value there under personal property that's depreciating probably faster than the panels do. And what I haven't figured out is how do we hold them accountable for if I'm running a big power plant, and I've got the one out west of Parowan has 300,000 panels, and if I replace 2,000 of them this year that maybe go bad, shouldn't the clock start over on those? We don't have a mechanism to enforce that. Anyway, those are all discussions that you could have, and I think again, and maybe the but-for argument is the best place to end. Except for having this increment, those projects maybe wouldn't exist. But that doesn't, to Paul's point, necessarily mean that you want to give away the farm. And I'm going to stop.
I think moving forward, now you know kind of where we're at, and we can have those discussions. That's great. So I guess with that, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval of ICC DNRA Resolution 2023-1, approval of designating a survey area, authorizing the preparation of draft community reinvestment project area plans and budgets, and authorizing and directing all necessary actions by the agency, staff, and legal counsel for Dutch Cowboy Solar and Parowan Solar.
I'd second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Adam. We'll go ahead and go to our personnel. We'll reconvene as Iron County Commission and go to our personnel. Jennifer. And Chad is on his way. So.
Oh, good.
All right. In the Sheriff's Office Patrol, Tyler Snyder has been selected from an internal roster to be promoted from a Deputy 3 to a Corporal, effective November 12th, 2023. Megan Stapley was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant full-time Sheriff's Office Secretary 1 position, effective date 11/13/2023. Jared O'Mealy has passed the required testing to receive bilingual pay, effective November 12th, 2023. And then in the Sheriff's Office Corrections, both Robert Leva and Devin Whitney have completed all skills and requirements to be promoted from a Deputy 1 to a Deputy 2, effective November 12th, 2023. And then in the Fair Events Department, Jamie Lynn Evans has been selected from an internal appointment to be promoted from a Media Assistant to a Fair Events Director, effective October 29th, 2023.
Thank you. Any Discussion? Okay, entertain a motion.
I would move for approval of all the above A through C as outlined by Jennifer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you.
I don't think we don't have any board.
We'll just wait. I think Chad should be here any minute. You want to get
She
started?
could start, yeah.
Let me, yeah. Why don't you go ahead and get started, Wendy, and then Chad can come in and weigh in as he likes.
So now
This is agenda item number
three.
3, discussion and possible approval of repayment of VOCA funds used and unallowable cost in contract services for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022, presented by Wendy Jessen and Chad Dodson.
Okay. So as you know, I was hired and started working as the director of the Children's Justice Center October 16th of 2023. In February of 2023, I started noticing some things in invoices from our contracted therapists that did not align with what I understood about what VOCA covers. In VOCA, if you don't know, is the Victims of Crime Act. So I started asking some questions to my grant analyst and discovered that things weren't being done properly. And as a result, that was during my fiscal year 23 quarter 3, or the county's quarter 1. There were, just during that, which is not included in this report, $33,040 that I was not able to seek reimbursement for, because those were unallowable. So from there, the report that I think you guys all have a copy of already. So this VOCA decided to do an audit.
Is this okay if I put up on the screen, or should I not?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
So they decided to come down and do an in-person audit. This started about May 1st of this year. They thoroughly went through documentation. We had to run a lot of reports and cross-check a lot of the data to see, what the full breadth of the issue was. And it is important to note that this only comprised the time frame from July 1st of 2020 to December 31st of 2022. So this was a thorough review of everything that had been billed to the county and that had then been sought reimbursement from VOCA. So in their summary of the problem, this starts on the second page. I don't know if you want to go to that. So the summary of the problem, beginning in February of 2019, the Iron County CJC began billing contracted therapy for clients who were not eligible to receive services under the VOCA grant. The current director, Wendy Jessen, identified the error in February of 2023. At that time, Wendy Jessen appropriately notified UOVC, that's the Utah Office for Victims of Crime, and discontinued billing for these ineligible services. Under number 1, it says 3 of the contracted therapists the CJC billed services to the grant for were interviewed and found to be completely unaware of the grant requirements or allowable costs. They all indicated that they were told by former executive director of the Iron County CJC, Stephanie Furnival, that the clients did not have to be victims of a crime. They only had to have had trauma of any sort to be eligible. Additionally, we are informed that one of the therapists was instructed by Stephanie Furnival to create a guide on how to categorize the clients they served into an eligible crime category for billing purposes. We reviewed this guide and were highly concerned with information it contained. That is on the last pages, but it just kind of genuinely or generally puts varying issues that children might be having at school and link them to a crime. So under number 2, we identified $237,633 paid to therapists by the CJC for fees that could not be linked to an individual client. These costs were identified by the therapist as other costs that covered their time and expenses. Some of these fees were deemed allowable for things such as therapist attendance at trainings and multidisciplinary team meetings, while others were paid by other funding sources, so they were not added to the ineligible amount. However, some of these costs were for excessive documentation time or periods of time where there were no clients being seen. At least one therapist was being paid hourly for time spent at local schools, whether services were being provided during the entire time or not. So that is unallowable. These contracted fees are meant to be used for 60-minute sessions, which is 50 minutes of actually working with the child and then 10 minutes for documentation. That is what we are allowed to bill VOCA for. Under number 3, under the terms of the VOCA award, only victims of specified crimes are eligible for assistance under the award. At least 3 therapists were providing services to individuals who were not victims of crime and had not had any interaction with the CJC. The original award stated that the clients would be referred for therapy from the CJC after receiving an assessment at the CJC. This was not done for the majority of clients that were seen by the therapist and subsequently billed to the VOCA grant. If we want to skip down to number 6, the overall amount they identified was $358,895, billed in ineligible costs to the UOVC grants for the contracted therapy services referenced above. Furthermore, we'll go down to the next summary of the problem, which is page 3. It says the Iron County CJC had engaged in several practices that do not align under CFR 200.303 internal controls. And they're talking about inadequate oversight of the program was not provided, contributed to the current concerns with billing of unallowable costs. So under number 1, it identifies the CJC was paying contracted therapists for services with no valid contracts in place. The only contracts found had expired June 30th, 2019. We were also at the CJC as we were looking in, scanned documents, electronic or in files that we have. We couldn't really find any that had signatures on them. We also asked the therapists if they had anything because we were really just trying to pin this down to see what we needed to do, what renewals had to be in place, and all of that. So there does have to be a contract in place to receive payment from VOCA. Also, travel documentation, this is under number 2. For the former director, Stephanie Furnival, reflected mileage that significantly overstated the distance from one location to another, resulting in Ms. Furnival being reimbursed for more mileage than justified. Some of this mileage was then billed to the above grants. Proper review of the reimbursement request would have identified the issue. Number 3, the CJC entered client information and contract billings into their tracking system without identifying if there had been a referral from the CJC authorizing the services or a contract in place to allow the expense. Okay, at the top of the last page, number 4 and 5. The VOCA grants were billed a combined total of $22,974.02, more than what the county ledgers showed being paid out during fiscal years 2021, 2022, and the first half of 2023. county procurement policy was not followed at any point in the process. Due to not having valid contracts in place, the entirety of billings could have been questioned back to July 1st, 2019, totaling as much as $917,207.50. So, as a result of this, and before that happened, we put some parameters into place. I worked with Chad Dotson and Sam Woodall on creating new contracts. And then we also put out the listing for contracted therapists and the requirements, which are from, the overlap of National Children's Alliance, what the VOCA requires, and also the CJC scope of work. We conducted interviews and decided to contract with 2 different practices. And now when we receive an invoice, each of those invoices has ID numbers that are linked to a CJC client, which we have that. It's either our CJC number that is generated by our system, or one of them uses their own ID number, and we have that linked to a specific client in our own documentation. And these are each verified prior to approving invoices for payment. And to be a client of one of the CJC contracted therapists, the child must have either been interviewed at the CJC, had a medical exam at the CJC, or in some instances where maybe either of those things are not an option for, there's just really rare reasons that would happen. We have a specific staffing with DCFS and or law enforcement, and so we can assist that child. The crimes that are allowable through the CJC scope of work and that overlap with VOCA are sexual abuse, physical abuse, or witness to a crime such as domestic violence or drug endangerment. So, questions?
I see Chad our county attorney just showed up. He might want to have something to say too. Wendy got started, Chad, and
I
appreciate
just
you.
went through everything.
Summary of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, essentially, sorry I didn't hear everything she said, but essentially when Wendy took over...
Sir, could you speak into the mic and tell us your name?
Yeah, you got it. So essentially when Wendy took
Thank you.
over, she started, becoming familiar with the grant process. And one of the things that she did was she started noticing some issues there. She reached out to VOCA, and VOCA started looking, and they saw what was going on the past several years. So obviously not a position we want to be in, but we've corrected the problem, and it's going to hurt early next year when we have to pay back this money that was misused. But was there any questions?
And this is going to be paid out of next year's budget, right, Luke?
Right.
What was the? There was when you were going through it, Wendy. There was some corrective action listed a couple of times.
Yes. So, VOCA has now put in more requirements in place. They'll be doing site visits, either scheduled or unscheduled. And also they will request more documentation. We may have more frequent audits just to make sure that our practices are sound to avoid any of this happening in the future. We also had to submit a response letter about how we were going to address all of the things that they are now requiring, the corrective actions. And I was pretty detailed with that. I listed some of those things already that we talked about just with the grants. And then there was also some issues, I don't remember where that was listed, about emergency funds. There was inadequate documentation for that. So now we are making sure that if we do use funds for emergency funds, that those are all properly and thoroughly documented as to the reason why they qualify, all of that, and just making sure that we keep really solid records.
So is there anything punitive besides repayment? And there's been different numbers kicked around, the 358 or the 917.
So the 358,895 is the amount that they are requiring repayment of.
Okay.
But it could have been 917,207.
Almost $1 million.
Yeah,
Maybe
because there
Wendy
weren't
mentioned that, but we
Mhm.
did kind of have a back and forth extensively to try and mitigate the cost as much as we could. And, I think that's part.
the initial worst case scenario they came up with, I mean, besides the 917, was about 605,000. Stephanie Rainey spent a good amount of time. When we pulled reports, she went through individually and cross-checked, and there were some things that were just entered into our system a little bit off. Like there's a box you check that says it's VOCA or not, and there was a bunch that shouldn't have been marked VOCA because they were being paid through the Cambia grant and things like that. So we cleaned that up and then submitted that information, and it adjusted the numbers to where we're at right now.
So you've made the process improvements. They don't require anything besides, the response, the letter, the process improvements, and then repaying the 358. Is that correct?
Yeah, for
I
the
just-
most
I
part,
just wanted
other
to
than
clarify.
they'll be doing more checking in on us, announced and unannounced, and more desk reviews.
But they didn't penalize us in a way, like we applied for this most recent grant and they didn't,
they weren't
refused to fund us.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Can I just have one question. What was your, I guess, between years past requests for amounts, what was the difference in prior requests and your request for this upcoming cycle?
Off the top of my head, I'm more familiar, obviously, with fiscal year 23. And I know the amount of therapy amounts that were requested, and this last year was over 319,000. I only requested 55,000, and that was based on data that I could see of CJC clients that we actually have, and kind of estimated, well, what if we gave them each the number that VOCA basically suggested was 12 sessions, and just kind of gauged in the ballpark where our needs actually are, and not just paying for all the therapy for kids who are struggling at school.
So one of the nice things was VOCA had across the board asked everybody to cut their requests significantly. What was it, 40%?
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to do that because obviously we weren't going to need this like they were using it before. So that was an easy way to make that cut.
And just for my ignorance, could you clarify? And I know you've kind of walked in both lanes there, but with VOCA, there is the CJC side, but then there's also victim advocacy. Mm-hmm. But those grant requests they're separate, right? They're not. Okay.
Yeah, so we have state funding, and with that, obviously we have to adhere to the CJC scope of work, which, where Jaden and the Iron County Victim Services, they can cover more crimes like assault and theft and those kind of things, because they're still crimes, right? And there's still victims attached to those. With the CJC, our scope of work is children and sexual abuse, physical abuse, or witness to a crime, such as domestic violence or drug endangerment, those things. So we have to find that overlap with VOCA and the scope of the CJC in order to provide those services.
Do any VOCA funds go toward victim advocacy, or is that all state funded? Okay.
Oh yeah. So our victim advocates, so Stephanie Rainey and Hayden Morton, and now our forensic interview, whose first day is today, they all are partially funded by VOCA. So with Stephanie and the forensic interviewer, Adeline, they are 75% VOCA and 25% state funding, and Hayden's 50-50.
And is that grant application stuff that goes across your desk, or do they do that on their own?
Oh, that's something I apply for.
For the VOCA, okay. I was just curious if that was
Yes.
was overlap there.
Yeah, and as far as, the question of if we, we're going to be rejected funds, the grant was approved for everything I asked for.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice.
Any other questions? Sounds like Wendy went through everything.
I don't know if Luke wants to talk about, you sent us an email on November 1st talking about how this is going to affect our budget next year, how we wouldn't have had to dip into our reserves as much as if it wasn't for this, or, do you want to address that, or?
Yeah. So, with the letter they'd got, with our repayment about $350,000 for next year, we are just budgeting to pay all of that in our next calendar year budget cycle. So we have that in our budget, and that'll just be coming out of our general fund. So it is giving us a pretty big hit there. But yeah, it'll be a one-time transfer that we'll make to our CJC fund and make that payment. So,
okay. Thank you.
With our revenues down, that really is a hit to us then. Yeah. Wow. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
all
your-
of that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
I'm just glad that it didn't go on further and that we was able to remedy it. Appreciate Wendy seeing those things.
When would this be payable? Would it be this calendar cycle or this budget cycle, Luke?
We, in our correspondence, I can come back up here, correspondence with VOCA, they were pretty flexible, but we indicated we were going to try and pay this as early as we could next budget, so January, February timeframe.
Okay. So I was just, the reason I was asking was for an action item for the commissioners. If it's, I guess, Luke, is that
It'll be included in the budget.
just becomes part of the 2024 budget? Okay. I just wanted to clarify for that action item.
Right.
So
We had
for
some
the
of those
motion-
discussions in budget hearings, and this was
So in the motion, we probably need to identify the amount and when it's going to be paid. Then that's what you're saying.
That's what I was
January.
trying to get clarified. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
It's my turn.
Yours.
Make sure I get this right with my glasses. We'll move for approval of repayment of VOCA funds used an unallowable cost in contract services for the period of July 1, 2020 through December 31, 2022 in the amount of $358,895, and that'll be paid as soon as possible in the 2024 budget cycle.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Are there any going down to boards? Is there any board discussion?
I don't think so.
Okay, if not, we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.